Yo.
Mac
Ba-da-doo-da-da. Should set my camera up, baby. It's a little bright in here. Oh, it's a little bright. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good whatever time it is. Welcome to another episode of Trevantine, the podcast in which you get to hear the thoughts, feelings, and emotions from an 18-year-old high school senior being affected by the coronavirus. Today's episode, we will have a special guest, a old-time legend, classmate, class of 16 from Liberty North High School, currently going to Mizzou, Mac Newton on. He's going to join the call anytime this second, but right now, life's not too bad. We just finished, or this is the end of the first week of um, whatchamacallit, online school. A lot of my teachers are happy. A lot of them are excited, but they're also starting to figure out how much work we need to actually do and what we can do. And they are starting to figure out that we can do more homework. And a lot of my teachers are joining, and it's just not good vibes, man. So I think Mac is actually in this call right now. So let's open this up. Mac, how you doing today, man?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Great, great. I'm chilling, bro. So, I mean, would you like to introduce yourself real quick? Just give everyone a quick heads up on who you are.
Of course, sure. Can you see me okay though?
Yeah, everything looks good. I'm trying to get you on the stream right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, sure. My name's Mac. I heard Trev give me a little introduction there. Yeah, him and I know each other from debate in high school. Like he said, I debated for Liberty North. I do now go to Mizzou, but not physically Mizzou anymore. Now I go to my home in Liberty, Missouri, and just do online classes, which is a weird transition, which I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, college student and friend of Trevor. That's my role in today's show.
I like that. All right, so you're on video now. So I guess we could just dive into it. How has Corona affected you personally?
Yeah, so personally, I'm back home now, back in Kansas City. Um, yeah, so basically my life second semester had been doing mock trial, um, working at the library at the Mizzou library. It's called Ellis Library. And then school, of course, going to classes and everything. And all three of those things have stopped. So I'd say it's impacted me pretty heavily. Um, I've been doing some online classes, but we are in our spring break week right now, actually. So I don't have anything going on this week. But last week we did some experimenting with Zoom and a few other features. The provost started out telling instructors to do Zoom and just have normal class meetings. But I think they kind of changed what they're looking for. And now it's all going to be asynchronous platform stuff. So voice threads, audio recordings, things like that. So it's going to be different even after we get back from break a few weeks after this all started.
Now, was there like a reason given why you guys are going away from Zoom?
I just think it's different for people to all be synchronized at the same time, basically. Internet access differs, time zones differ. It's probably just easier, especially when you consider the fact that Mizzou has a lot of entry level courses with north of 400 or 500 students that are enrolled in those entry level courses. It would be really hard to execute a Zoom properly with all those people, I think, logged on. And I mean, one person starts talking, the image shifts to them. It would be a huge distraction with like 400 or 500 kids. So I think a university the size of Mizzou, I mean, the two classes I did it for had maybe like 30 and 25 people in them respectively, because I'm kind of in the later stages of my college education. So the classes are a lot smaller. But yeah, 400 or 500 kids, just not possible. So I understand the desire for asynchronous stuff. But then, of course, the concern becomes, are students going to, when they're not held responsible for meeting at a certain time, have the discipline and the wherewithal to go back and, read through the different computer files and locate the lecture for that day and read it on their own time or listen to it? I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you've maintained your level of discipline from high school, and I mean, if all these teachers are moving to this, I guess, record and then publish, how have you been maintaining a proper routine without like derailing yourself?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, this is the spring break week, so this has been nice for me to kind of familiarize myself with things that teachers are posting in advance. We've gotten a couple lectures for next week when we reconvene, quote unquote, academically. Um, but yeah, I've been able to read through a couple of those. Each teacher is kind of do something different, especially at the college level. There's a lot of freedom and autonomy for these teachers. So I've got a couple that are doing voice threads where it's just audio stuff, and a couple that have done pre-recorded lectures where they just set up a webcam and kind of talk into the computer. It's hard for a couple of classes because uh, a couple of my classes have more of like a Socratic kind of meeting, especially some of the upper level poli sci classes that I'm in. Most of it, I'd say like 60, 70% is the students talking with each other about readings. And obviously, that's no longer possible if you're not doing a Zoom thing, if it's all asynchronous. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work out. But like you said, man, it is all about maintaining the routine. I've let it slip a little bit, sleeping in and everything over spring break, but I'll make sure to get back on track.
And what major are you following right now?
I'm a political science major and an econ minor.
So what's your ultimate goal post college?
Oh, I'll be headed to law school.
Right on, man. So, I guess getting into like a kind of a emotional side. Whenever you first heard that Mizzou wasn't having classes and everything would be online, what were your feelings right at that moment?
And it just felt so surreal. Um, yeah, there were a couple schools around the country that canceled before we did. Yeah, I just remember sitting in class the day that things first got postponed. And especially when you're going to a college as massive as Mizzou and you just see like tens of thousands of students walking around every day, it almost feels like an invincible process, if that makes sense. There are just so many people relying on it, not just students, but also there are like thousands of workers, from the chancellor of the system all the way down to like minimum wage workers in the cafeteria who rely on the system operating to like stay viable financially. So you just kind of never felt like it was going to happen. And then when they made the decision, initially it was, I believe, a 2 week postponage of classes. And that was like stunning. And then after that, a couple other colleges around the country canceled. And I was like, man, Mizzou being the size that it is, like, and getting the state funding, it's going to have to take cues from these other big universities. So, I mean, I was expecting it, but I honestly feel it's the same way in high school, but I feel for the seniors in college too, especially because, when you're in a different location than where you live normally or where you resided for high school, there are a lot of people who have made strong friendships over the last 4 years of college who just might never see those friends again, period, because they have no reason to go back to that location, which is just, I mean, that's really sad for a lot of people. I've got some friends from the mock trial team who are in that same boat. It's going to be hard to see them again. So it's tough, man.
Mm. Yeah, that it is tough, and especially even in being a senior in high school, it's tough because we miss all our spring sports. We're missing quite a bit.
Yeah,
Um,
I was at debate districts hoping to judge a round or two. Will and Blake, I kind of scanned their cases for them and gave them a few suggestions. They've had an awesome year. A lot of folks from the team had. So I was really hoping me and I'm sure you remember Cami Smith.
mhm.
She was there too. We were going to get a few rounds of judging in, and I was hoping to watch Will and Blake in a round, and then in the middle of the tournament, news came through that the NSDA was no longer going to honor the results from that weekend in an effort to kind of disincentivize people from continuing the tournaments, even though we were already like a round or two in. And man, I'm just devastated for those kids, especially because remembering how much that meant to me my senior year of high school, going to nationals and how badly I wanted to bring home North's first round of nationals trophies. If we would have never even gotten the opportunity to do districts, or it would have been stopped halfway through, that would have been devastating. So yeah, man, I feel for those kids for sure.
Now, you being a senior and then you're missing out of mock trial also. Is there anything else you're missing out on? No, you're not a
I'm
senior. You're a
actually
junior.
I'm
My
actually a
bad.
junior. I'm
Yeah.
actually a junior, yeah. But mock trial, yeah, definitely missing out on that. That's been really tough. That was kind of the next platform for me after debate that I've really, really gotten to enjoy. And it's more topical professionally too, because you learn a lot of the procedure that you'll do as a practicing attorney. So missing out on that has been really rough. I also do like an intramural basketball league every spring. It's not as serious. We play one game a week, and we try to get together for like one practice. But just my routine, like the rec at Mizzou, I'm there pretty much every day playing basketball. That's kind of how I like to stay in shape these days, and some tennis occasionally. It's starting to get nicer outside, but yeah, obviously can't play any basketball because that requires a lot of bumping and contact and things that are just not advisable during a pandemic. So I'm missing that. um yeah, just the library too. Like I work there, like I mentioned. It's been like my source of income for the last 2 semesters, and that closed down. I was going to go back. They had the library open for a few weeks. um I was going to go back to Columbia and just do my school from home and then work at the library at night. And then they ended up issuing an order like 4 or 5 days ago that all on-site work that's not like essential medical work is to be canceled. So that
Mm.
includes my desk job at the library, unfortunately.
Do you know at the library, are they like disinfecting everything?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're going through and deep cleaning.
Yikes. So I assume they're doing that with like all of the campus too.
Yeah, that is true. And I will say that's one benefit for like the custodial staff and those lower wage workers who rely on Mizzou being open to stay financially viable, because it's them that are going through and doing the disinfecting and the cleaning. So that's one good thing, that not everyone who is reliant on paycheck to paycheck support from the university is immediately cast out into the cold. These people have several weeks, hopefully a month or two during the semester where they'll be making their normal wage, which I'm pleased with. I would hate to. I mean, if you're on campus every day, you see there are hundreds of like cafeteria workers, custodial workers, a lot of like grown adults who rely on the university operating for their livelihood. So my primary concern is not even these students; it's the people working.
No, I guess we can get a little political with this. Do you think the relief package could as provide some sort of assistance during this time?
Um, it's definitely going to provide some assistance. It's kind of like a band-aid on a bullet hole, really. Yeah, it's a lack of a better alternative that I would have trouble coming up with. It seems like a simplistic approach, just to oh, we're having trouble having businesses open, so let's pass a $2 trillion stimulus package and throw thousands of dollars at people. If you know me politically, that's not really my stance at all. I take more of a libertarian approach. I'm not a big fan of government assistance and support in most cases, um, but it definitely feels like something of that magnitude is warranted in this case because, like I said, this is kind of an unprecedented time, and a lot of people who are being the most affected are those low-wage workers. So, on principle, I don't love to see it, but when I think about all the good that it's going to do for people, hopefully, and hopefully the fact that it's not going to become a crutch that's relied upon like in the future, hopefully it's a one-off, um, then yeah, I think it's something that had to happen.
So you talked about this being an unprecedented circumstance.
Mhm.
Do you believe what the Trump administration is doing is adequate for combating something as serious as a global pandemic?
I mean, it's so tough, man, because we're talking about an unprecedented circumstance with this pandemic. Trump is an unprecedented president. So, I mean, as of right now, their response that they've been leading, yeah, I think they're doing fine. I'm a little bit disappointed by the complacency at the beginning of this pandemic because we really could have got out ahead of this in a way that was much more on top of things than we ended up doing. We were playing catch up. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the news. I know you've been keeping up pretty heavily, but we just passed China and Italy for the most confirmed cases in the world yesterday, from what I read. And, a lot of that, you shouldn't get too wrapped up in the confirmed cases count because testing methods differ and the plentifulness of the tests also differ. But for what the administration's done, let's say like the last week or 2 weeks, I can't be that upset, especially when you're judging it when it's a Trump administration. You have to kind of view it in a different lens than you would view an Obama or a Bush or any of his precedents administrations. So, for a Trump administration where competence can sometimes be a concern, I think they've been doing what's necessary for the past couple weeks.
Nice. I like that take. I guess one more question, or I got two more questions for you, but one more that kind of ties in with this.
Sure.
How long do you think the coronavirus will impact us, especially with the whole quarantine situation going on? Like, what's your stance on that?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. Big business, and I mean, as a guy who's been involved in DECA and stuff, that's really what makes the country tick, and it's a powerful motivator. I'm afraid that some of those factors are going to become overwhelming. So if the question is, when is my prediction as to when things will start to go back to normal and these kind of nationwide bans on people gathering will dissipate, I think it's earlier than it should. Um, I'm just as antsy as anybody else, but I recognize the need to kind of keep people from themselves, essentially. And in a capitalist society that I think the idealism of capitalism serves us really well 99% of the time, but when a pandemic's happening, that is the one time where things get a little troubling, because people have to gather, there has to be production, there has to be consumption, and yeah, things kind of stall. And if those wheels aren't greased, I think our hand will kind of be forced. Trump mentioned wanting to reopen things by Easter, which is extremely ambitious. I've been listening to a couple of the podcasts you've been doing, a couple of the shows, and I heard Jed say the other day that he thought it would be until July. Man, um, I don't think that's unrealistic, or at least until July is what we should be doing. Like I said, I think there are other factors that are going to kind of catalyze a resumption of normalcy earlier than we should, and I think we'll probably see an uptick in cases and unfortunately deaths as a result. But yeah, that would be my prediction, earlier than we should.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that optimistic ish take on that.
Yeah,
And I guess my last question for you today is I'm a fitness guy, you're a fitness guy,
right.
MSN Fitnessgram, with all the
Hmm.
gyms being canceled or closed really, how's that impacted you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, so in my basement, I have a squat rack and a bench. So both of those, obviously, as you know, there's a lot of things you can do with just a barbell and some free space. And I've got a few free weights down there too. So a lot of what I do, um, so I have a torn labrum in my right shoulder that I tore junior year of high school playing tennis. And so a lot of normal movements that people would incorporate in a fitness routine without injury, I'm not able to do. Like um, I lay down on the ground for bench because my elbow can't exceed 90 degrees. I can't do like shoulder cleans. I can't do military press. So a lot of what I do is already pretty modified. And thankfully, I'm not super reliant on the equipment at gyms. Um, I'm sure you've been to Norterre in Liberty. I love that place. Whenever I'm
Hmm.
home, I try to go there every day, which obviously I'm not able to do. So that's kind of tough. I do have a basketball hoop in my driveway, so to kind of take the place of the cardio that I got running 5-on-5 at Mizzou, I've been doing a lot of hooping in the driveway just to stay busy. So don't worry, you'll see plenty more posts on the fitness gram even in quarantine. I'll keep it coming.
Right on, man. Yeah, that's at MSN_fitnessgram, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, Mac, I appreciate you coming on today. Love hearing your
Yeah, man.
thoughts.
Just real quick, I wanted to say that I've made sure to watch a few shows. I really like what you're doing. Keep it up. People don't say it to you enough, probably on the show, because you're always the one kind of initiating the questions and everything, like a good interviewer should. But man, I've loved watching it. Keep it up. I've gone through and watched a bunch of different videos at times over the years. Since I graduated, the debate trips and stuff that you've vlogged have been really fun to watch. And you just do a great job on here, man. So keep it up. I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate that. It's always hard to return a thanks, but yeah, I appreciate that, dude.
Of course, bro. I appreciate you having me on. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, maybe in a couple months whenever things hopefully level out a little bit more. We'll chip
Absolutely,
in.
man. And I'll stay a viewer in the time being.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
All right. See you, boss.
All right, man. You have a good one. Wash your hands.
I will.
And that was the legend himself, Mac Newton. I knew him from debate my freshman year, and yeah, he's always been a legend. And yeah, I'm so glad I got to talk to him, especially on a Zoom meeting. I got to figure out a better way so I'm not like just staring at the side of the screen, because the way my setup is right now, it's like I have a monitor here, obviously a monitor here, and another monitor here, and I'm like keep looking at this screen. Maybe I can move the camera to face this way, so I'm like looking at the screen, looking at you guys. I don't know. I'll figure it out pretty soon. But yeah, I always appreciate that, Mac, and that was good. He did hit on a sensitive topic, and that was the Norterre closing down. I live there every day, man, and pretty soon, I think either this weekend or next week, I'm gonna do a fitness podcast with a couple other people. Um, a lot of my bodybuilder friends that are like huge, and I just want to talk about how they've modified their workouts to fit and do their part with this quarantine. So yeah, so now we're on the second part of the show where we talk about today's headlines. Headlines, of course, are always scrolling in the bottom corner of your screen, and this is all from the New York Times. I might start needing to switch up the news sources. I just do this because they have this whole quarantine live update, the corona outbreak, and it's really convenient just to see the top headlines, because it's like, here's what you need to know, and then they'll have the clickbaity headlines. So I'll definitely look around. My goal with this podcast is make it as best as I can. I You've probably noticed the last two have been video podcasts, so I've been trying to change things up, make things a little better, and yeah, hopefully whenever we get more people on, it can just look a lot better. So yeah, here's today's headline. It says Trump lashed out at lawmakers who's threatening to delay passage of relief bill. I mean, of course it's going to happen. Like Mac was saying, this is an unprecedented president, and his whole administration's different than what we've seen in the past. And if he's lashing out, yeah, because he's trying to help the people, and if you're trying to delay something that could potentially help someone, especially one where Donald Trump's name would be on it, he's going to get upset with you. He tends to get very emotional when it comes to his politics and stuff. So the next one is, after expressing doubts about need for more ventilators, Trump pushes industry to do more. That's good. He's doing his part. Like I said a couple days ago, he was going to enact the wartime's power to increase production, which is great. On the news yesterday, I saw that this one factory that usually sews like leather bags or something. They're turning their like factory, not it's not a factory, it's like a garage downtown with a bunch of sewing machines, but they're going to turn it into making those like those masks. So they're like sewing together two things of cloth, and then they're handing them out to the hospitals, which is great. And it's really that point of the this time where we're becoming more as one rather than separating, and the partisanship and like all the negatives we're seeing with like a pandemic like this is starting to bring us closer together. That's actually one thing I want to talk about on towards the end of the podcast, and that's growing together. So I'll write that down. But if we're all working together towards a common goal, that's ultimately something I want to see many of us coming out of this pandemic. So now the next one is Prime Minister Boris Johnson of Britain tests positive for coronavirus. I mean, I assume he's still relatively young. I think let me double check that. I just know he's been a meme in the past, couple years. He's 55 years old, so he's kind of in that iffy stage, but I'm sure he'll get through it. If he's a prime minister, he'll have the aid and then the health care that is possible to keep him going. Wall Street drops after its best 3-day run since 1933. I think, I mean, I'm no economicist, economist or anything, but I feel like the stock market is going to continue to rise and fall, and it's just going to keep going up and down. I mean, maybe I should get an economist on here, someone who knows a little bit more about the stock market than I do. But from what I've heard from the news, this is just going to keep happening until things tend to level out. Like Mac was also saying, is big business until things go back to a little bit normal, where people can start selling stuff, people can start buying stuff, people can start working again. The stock market's going to keep rising and falling. Next headline is, how did the U.S. overtake the world in new infections? We'll read over that in a little bit, but keep that. We'll put a pin in there. In one Italian region, sirens don't stop wailing for the dead. That's a depressing headline. People are obviously going to keep dying. They said, I think it was yesterday or the day before, we were 20 days out from the peak of the whole curve. So the amount of reported cases of corona is going to keep going up for a couple days, but if that estimate is correct, then it should start decreasing, which would mean a more return to a normal life, but not quite as normal. Because I mean, obviously, if we're going to hit this peak and then we start going down, if we get rid of all of our restrictions too early, then it's going to lead to another rise, because we won't know if we're still spreading it or not. But for now, I think we just got to sit tight and listen to the quarantines. I know I think there's still like another week or two. I think it's another week in Liberty. I'll have to double check that, but I'm just kind of speaking out my butt right now. And then the next headline is, the UK salutes its health workers as New York mourns a casualty. So yeah, health workers are gonna keep passing on, and like I said, I've been saying, is it's hard because the people that are professionals that can help people are going to keep being exposed to more of this corona, so they're going to be infected also. Maybe not necessarily with all these precautions they're taking, but there is still a good chance. So let's go back to that one article. How did the US overtake the world in new infections? Right here it says, China deeply flawed effort to provide broad testing for the virus has left the country to bind to the extent of the crisis. So like Mac was saying, just the whole push of test kits and the difference in quality in certain areas is probably a huge thing. The US is now number one, like Mac was saying. And then let's see, a doctor from the Columbia University says this could have been stopped by implementing testing and surveillance much earlier. For example, when the first imported cases were identified. Yeah, I mean, the United States is kind of a melting pot. That's kind of a big thing of us, and people like to travel. So if people are going all over the world and they're trying to come back, the spread's going to keep going. Um, the end of this article says, at least for now, China has contained the coronavirus with draconian measures. So, I mean, we're not as brutal, I guess, as China is right now. But then again, we also don't know like exactly what China is doing. I mean, we can do our best to emulate what China's doing, but we can't do everything that China is doing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, that's basically it for the headlines. It's just me trying to digest it, make it a little easier to understand for you guys, even though I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. But hey, that's what a high school senior is here for, and it's those thoughts and emotions and feelings that I'm here to provide you. So now I think we could go talk about that topic I wanted to talk about earlier, and that was what I kind of hope to see with the coronavirus. And I mean, you don't want to say that there is a good thing that will come out of this, especially when lots of people are dying and people will continue to keep dying. But the one thing I hope to see is the sense of community come back to us as citizens in the United States. And I want to be able to say that we're growing closer together, and becoming more as Americans than what we were a couple months ago when we were all still like fighting over each other. The election was supposed to happen, so a lot of people just didn't have common views, and that caused a lot of people to lash out at each other and become mad at each other. So I feel like this is a great time to bring us together. I know a lot of people are gaining new and better habits. Every morning I go run 3 miles, and on my runs I see way more people out than I ever used to see, which is good, but it's kind of like, aren't we supposed to be quarantined? But at the same time, the government said it was cool to go outside. That's just like that gray space that we're kind of going through. And I went longboarding up in Smithville yesterday, and that trail was, I don't, not packed to people, but there were so many people on that trail. And like usually when I go longboarding out there, it's like a person here, a person there. This trip, it was like a person every 2-3 minutes we'd see someone, and it was like interesting, which is good because that means more people are getting outside. And if people can garner these healthy habits just because of this virus, then I think some good will come out of it. Also, that sense of community. I know every time I run by someone, I'll wave at them, say, "Hey, how you doing?" Um, Making sure to stay 6 feet apart from them, and then it's just nice to see that we're not all angry at each other yet. I know I talked whenever this started getting real. I was talking about how there could be raiders and marauders. Maybe that's another topic for another day. But as of now, I think since we're all kind of put out there, scared and alone, we don't know what's going on, what's happening. So it's just a good time to pick up good habits. I know yesterday I came this close to reading. I'm not a big reader, but my computer was having issues, and I was playing like a video game, which I've been playing so many video games lately, which is honestly not good. But at the same time, what else is there to do? you know. Um, but there's been a bunch of like classic books I haven't read yet, and I've been trying to read. Like I think over my bookshelf I have like Fahrenheit 451, Catch 22, and The Great Gatsby. Those are three books I haven't read yet, and I haven't been forced to read yet through high school. So I felt that would have been a good time to read those and delve into those worlds. And I've been reading a lot of economic books. I've been reading the Freakonomic books, Super Freakonomics, When to Rob a Bank, books like that, which are fantastic, but they're not books that keep you engaged. Maybe Freakonomics is a little bit more because it's like stories and they just like combine random topics, but I feel like I don't have to continue reading that. It's not like a story like how Fahrenheit 451 will be, or Catch 22. It's not unraveling and I don't know what's happening next. It's kind of like I can kind of predict what's going on, so I feel like I could just skim over the chapter and it's not reading. And then yeah, the third area of this today's podcast could be talking about just how what I've been doing in this coronavirus. And this morning, like I said, I woke up, went on a run, indulged in that sense of community, being able to interact with people more than what we used to be doing. I went on my run. I made a work a makeshift bench press. Like I said, I only have like a 10 pound or a 15 pound dumbbell barbell thing. It's like a 5 pound bar with 6 5 pound weights, so it's not like a lot. And I'm definitely feeling withdrawals from lifting heavy weight. But I guess this is a good opportunity just to get shredded. And I worked out. I did my little workout, but on the makeshift bench press was something else. I had 2 buckets, and then we have like old 2x4s for some reason, and I just put those against a bucket. Most ghetto thing I've probably done in a long time. But then I like just laid down, did my bench press, and I kind of feel my chest, but I don't feel it as much as I would. So you gotta make do with what you had. Then I went inside, made a smoothie, played a little Minecraft. I'm really considering streaming that maybe tonight because I don't have anything else to do. But that would be something intriguing, and then you guys can just see me working on my Minecraft house. Maybe even we can have a live Q&A and talk about stuff. But I don't know. It's up to you guys. And then what else happened? Yeah, I've just been gaming, man. Trying to gain knowledge. My calculus live class has been going pretty well. I'm pretty down for it. We all use Google Meets. We'll hop on at 12:30 and he'll go through a little lecture. And it's nice because we could ask him questions like through the chat client, or if we want, we can unmute our mics and talk to him. But for the most part, people are really good about not messing with him and unmuting their mics and just screaming stuff. That was my initial concern with online classes, but that's it. And then, like I said at the top of the podcast, a lot of my teachers are just pounding us with homework. And it's not like it's not doable. It's a lot different when you're not doing it at school and you feel like you don't have to actually do it. But yeah, that's about it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Keep washing your hands, and this is the way it's going to be for a little while. Unless, thinking optimistically like the man himself, Mac Newton, just said earlier, things can level out sooner than later. Keep washing your hands, stay safe, stay healthy, stay quarantined, stay Trevantined. And yeah, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. We'll have a different show. Hopefully I can get some guests on. I know last week I planned this entire week out, and now I don't have any people planned out yet, but I'll start working on that today. And yeah, I feel like I've closed this podcast like 12 times, but I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Oh, Schmeg, I didn't have the chat open. My bad. I'll have it on tomorrow. But no, dude, MacGyver, dude, he is the coolest guy I know.